right, week 3, day 3 to the promised land. At this point, the Israelites are wandering through the wilderness after they have been in Egypt for 430 years. They are headed to the promised land, the land that God has promised to them. So we know that during this time period, which ends up to be 40 years, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they are grumbling and they are sometimes grateful for what God's given them, but they quickly forget. I know we're seeing a pattern here, and they start grumbling and sinning and becoming angry with God, all those things. So, and essentially that is the book of Numbers. That's what the book of Numbers does. It's the story of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and it records a time period after Exodus, before the Israelites had entered the promised land. So, now let's backtrack a little bit. After you ended with the yesterday with the Israelites traveling with the tabernacle, and after they had done that for about a year, they come up on the land of Canaan for the first time, and Moses sends in 12 spies to check out the land. So 10 of these spies, they go in and they're there for 40 days. 10 of the spies come back and say, these people are very large people. They were almost like a land of giants. We cannot possibly overtake them. We should not do this. And 2 of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, come back and say, this is the land God has promised us and he will absolutely give it to us. We should do this. Well, God is angry with the 10 that say that they can't. And so in Numbers 14, 26 through 30, we find out their disbelief is going to cost them severely. And God says this, hey, listen, your generation of people will not see this promised land, and only Joshua and Caleb out of all of you will. So I'm going to send you to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, and then you can come back and give it another shot. So that's exactly what he does. As they're wandering, there's a time where they're in a land with little water. And so God comes to Moses and Aaron and says, hey, listen, you need to give these people water, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to go over to this rock, and I want you to speak, and the water will come out. Well, for whatever reason, Moses instead takes his staff, and he hits the rock, and the water comes out, and that displeases God. So God then doesn't allow even Moses to enter the promised land. But 40 years later, here they are, fickle and disbelieving. They're back at the entrance of Canaan again. And Moses does talk to the people and say, listen, when you guys get to this promised land, you need to remember God. You need to remember all that he's done and the promises that he's kept. And all these speeches comprise Deuteronomy. So if you look through Deuteronomy, those are the speeches that you're going to see. So here we go. Now, and then, so God does allow Moses he didn't enter the land that God promised to the Israelites, but God does take him high on a mountain to let him see the land. And he dies there. And to this day, nobody knows where Moses is buried because God laid him to rest. That's where we are. Tomorrow, we're going to jump into what happens as Joshua and Caleb lead the people into the promised land.